but we still need to know how prices are determined, how firms decide how much they charge for their products. So how prices are determined. For firms, when they set their prices, they think of their costs. Okay, how much a given amount of output will cost them, and that's related to the production function. Okay, and the production function here, it's a relationship between inputs and output. Okay, and for simplicity, to make things simple, we'll assume that we have a very simple production function where y, which is the output here, depends on only labor. So we have only one input in this production function, which is in here. So in here is the employment. A here is the labor productivity or output per worker. Okay. So again, what we're trying to do here, we're trying to understand how firms set their prices. Their prices depends on the cost, and the cost depends on the production function they have. Okay, so that's why we're looking at the production function. And also we will simplify this even further by assuming that A here, or labor productivity, is constant. So we'll assume that A here equal 1, which leave us with Y, output, equal N, that's the employment. Okay, which means if you want to increase output by 1 unit, that means you need to increase employment by 1 unit too. Okay, so in that sense, okay, the marginal cost from microeconomics, you should understand what marginal cost means. So this is the cost of this additional or the extra unit of output, okay, equal the wage. Because now remember, so the sort of output, the sort of production function here we have depends only on employment, and we assume that A equal 1. So that means 1 to 1. So if you want to increase output by 1 unit, you need to increase employment by 1 unit, which means you need to employ 1 more worker. Okay, and how much you pay to those to the additional worker is W. That's the nominal wage. So in that case, the marginal cost, or the cost of producing an extra or additional unit of output, equal the wage level. So why we are here, why we are looking at this, because we want to know how firms set their prices. Okay, so basically what they will do, they usually set their prices with a markup over the cost. So if the cost here is W, then the price will equal 1 plus M. M here is the markup times the cost, which is the wages. Okay, so from here now we can have this relationship between the price and wage, and we could also use this to get an expression of real wage. Real wage here is W over P. So to sum up now, let's look at what we did before, wage setters. So how wages are determined, we already know that now, so there's nothing new here. So wage depends on expected price level, PE, and then employment rate, and Z. So for now, later we'll relax this assumption. For now, let's assume that W depends on the price level, so the actual price level, not the expected price level. So basically what I did here, just I assume that P equal PE. So they are the same. So wages depend on the price level, the actual price level. So why I'm doing this? Because I want to get an expression of real wage. Remember what we said before? We said workers and firms, what do they care about? Do they care about nominal wage or more about real wage? So that's what we after now. We want to look at real wage. So from here, what I did just now, you divide by the price level. So that means this, what we have here, we have the real wage depends on U and Z. So the employment rate and this factor that we said, they capture all other variables. Okay. So higher unemployment rate means lower real wage, choosing by wage setters. So which we call here the wage setting relation. So it's a relationship between real wage and unemployment rate. Okay. So we'll do the same with the other relationship. So remember, this is how firms decided on their prices. So they put some kind of a markup on top of the cost. So I want to get from here, I want to get a relationship or an expression of the real wage, not the prices. So to do this, so this is what we did before. So this prices equal 1 plus M. This is the markup times the cost. Now, all what you need to do here is to divide by W. This will give us P over W equals 1 plus M. But what I want is W over P. I don't want P over W. I want the real wage. Real wage is W over P. So what you need to do is just to invert both sides or flip both sides. That will give you what you're after here. So W over P, this is real wage, equal 1 over 1 plus M. So this is kind of the price setting decision. And here, this is the wage setting decision. So W over P, and this is again W over P. See, so from the wage setting side, so that depends on the unemployment rate and Z. And from the price side, that depends on 1 over 1 plus M, and M here is the markup. Okay? So remember when we said here, firms usually set their prices according to some markup, which we called M. So some markup over the costs. So from here, we can find at the equilibrium real wage, where these two meet together. So again, look at what we have here. We have from the price setting relation here, this is the W over P equal 1 over 1 plus M. From the wage setting relation, so we have W over P, or real wage depends on the unemployment rate and the variable that we talked about, that catch all other variables. So from here you could have this relation, which is, this is the wage. So what we have on the horizontal axis, we have unemployment rate. On the vertical axis, we have the real wage. So real wage is W over P. So looking at this, going back to this, 1 over 1 plus M, this is some kind of fixed number here, so it depends on how much M is. So that's kind of horizontal line, because it doesn't really depend on the unemployment rate. Okay, so you see on the horizontal axis here, we measure unemployment rate. So if you go back to this relation, you don't see unemployment rate here. Okay, so that's why it's horizontal line. Okay, but when you go back to this relation here, okay, so it's a negative relationship. You see that negative sign that we explained when we started the context when we talked about. So a higher unemployment rate means a lower real wage. Okay, so that's why you see that when you look at the wage setting relation, you see a downward sloping curve. Okay, so this denotes the wage setting relation, and this horizontal line, which at this level 1 over 1 plus M, that denote the price setting relation. And the equilibrium point here, where these two points intersect or meet each other, that's A. And that determine, remember what we measure on the horizontal axis here is the unemployment rate. So that unemployment rate associated with this point is what we call the natural rate of unemployment. Okay, so the natural rate of unemployment is the unemployment rate such that the real wage chosen by wage setting is equal to the real wage implied by price setting. Okay, and that UN here, this just to denote the natural rate of unemployment. Okay, so you could see this, put these two equations together here. That's exactly what I meant. So this equation is wage setting. This equation is the price setting. So both are expressed in terms of real wage. You see. So that means if you can drive the unemployment rate or the equilibrium unemployment rate by eliminating this real wage. So that means these two are equal, which is exactly what you see here. And that's what we call the natural rate of unemployment. And that depends on two things. Depends on Z and M. Okay, so the markup and that Z variable that we say catch all other variables. Okay, and the relationship is positive, as you can see. So higher markup means a higher level of natural rate of unemployment. A lower level of the markup, that means a lower level of natural rate of unemployment. The same thing with Z. So think of Z as unemployment benefits, just to make it easier for you to understand what we mean by Z. Because we say that Z can refer to other things too, but just to make it just simple, just think of unemployment benefits. Okay, so a higher level of this unemployment benefit, that means again a higher level of the natural rate of unemployment. Okay, we could see this using the graph. Looking at this now, so let me just go back to the equilibrium point just before to see the change. Look at what we have here. We have this wage sitting relation. Remember, that's the wage sitting relation is the markup, 1/1 plus the markup. Sorry, that's the price sitting relation. And the wage sitting relation depends on the unemployment rate and unemployment benefits, or Z, which capture all other factors. So now, given that we're looking at a relationship or a graph where we have unemployment rate on the horizontal axis and real wage on the vertical axis, so if Z, for example, unemployment benefit change, how this graph will change. Higher unemployment benefit means that curve will shift upward or to the right. Okay, and that will increase the natural rate of unemployment. Higher unemployment benefits will lead to an increase in the natural rate of unemployment from this UN to this UN prime, to this level. Okay, and what does that mean? It means now if you want to go back to this level, to the same level of UN, or the natural rate of unemployment, you need really to push this up really high until it gets intersect with this curve here at somewhere that correspond this level. So you need to lower the markup, which means you need to increase the real wage. But let's just think of one thing at a time. So let's not worry about what if. So let's now think about what we're looking at now. So what we're looking at here is unemployment benefits increased, and how this will affect the equilibrium point here, or how this will affect the natural rate of unemployment. Okay, so we said here, if you look at this equation, these two equations, you'll see Z here is in the wage sitting relation, which is the downward slope curve. So that will shift to the right, as you can see, because the change here implies, or it's an increase in unemployment benefits. So the new level of, so given that nothing else changed, so we didn't assume that anything happened to this markup level. So that means the new unemployment, or the new natural rate of unemployment, is the U prime here. Okay, so that means this is a higher level of the natural rate of unemployment. How about if the markup change? So going back to these two equations here, looking at, so the markup here, basically, it's in the price sitting equation, so it's not in this equation. Okay, so a higher markup will shift that curve, so that will go down. Going down means that we move from this point A to this point A prime. So this is the new equilibrium point. Okay, which again show that the level of the natural rate of unemployment is now higher. Yeah, so that's the point here. So you could put these together, these two relations together, and that will tell you, will give you a relationship between, you see what we have here, between the real wage on the vertical axis and the unemployment rate on the horizontal axis. Let me just summarize this, because this is very important. What we said so far, we assume that the nominal wage depend on the price, the actual price, rather than the expected price level. Okay, so this is something we will relax in the next half of the lecture. We'll think about, okay, so what would happen now when the actual prices are not exactly the same, or they're not equal to the expected price level. But what we assume now is, okay, so both are equal, and this is something in the short run might not be true. So actual prices, or the actual price level, doesn't have to be exactly the same as the expected price level when the nominal wages were set. So that means the actual, or the unemployment rate in the short run doesn't have to be the natural rate of unemployment. It doesn't have to be this level. Okay, so again, because what we saw here is based on the assumption that both are the same. The actual price level is exactly the same as the expected price level. But in the short run, it doesn't have to be the case. So that means the unemployment rate or the current unemployment rate in the short run doesn't have to be the natural rate of unemployment. It could be below or above this level. But in the medium run, output tends to return to the natural level. The reason is because expectations are unlikely to be wrong all the time. Okay, so there's some. Let's say the workers will correct their expectations in terms of the prices, and then they will get it right eventually. Okay,